So welcome everyone. This is Chris Nickson. He's, as I said in my description on the website, he's a writes historical mysteries. He's from Leeds in West Yorkshire, and most of his mysteries are set there. There's a few that I think are set elsewhere, but in surrounding counties anyway. Um, I think he's very interesting. I hope you find what you have to say interesting. Anything else you want me to add about you?
Not really, no. I think that about covers it. So
All
just
right.
fire the questions at me.
So yeah, I was thinking you could maybe give a little bit of a presentation and then maybe we could have a Q&A. Does that work?
That works fine.
Okay.
Um, as Warren said, I write historical crime fiction, and most of it is set in Leeds, which is my hometown. Um, I lived actually in the States for 30 years, 10 of them in the Midwest and 20 in Seattle before I moved back here, and that was 20 years ago. But Leeds interests me. I feel it in a way that no other place quite captures. And I've written about it in different time periods. My first series featured Richard Nottingham, who actually really was the Constable of Leeds in the 1730s, which is before a police force actually existed. My second series was in the late Victorian period and featured Detective Inspector Tom Harper, who over the series would rise to become Chief Constable. But it also featured almost equally, although she wasn't part of the mysteries, his wife Annabelle and their daughter Mary. The third series is set sort of in between the two in the 1820s, before there was a police force here, which didn't come into being until the late 1830s. And it involves a thief taker, Simon Westow, and the women who work with him. A thief taker would, if you've been the victim of a robbery or a burglary, a thief taker would try to find and return what had been taken for a fee. Some were very good, some were corrupt. Simon happens to be very good and not corrupt. But the people who work with him are the most interesting, particularly two young women, Jane and Sally. But you'd have to read the books yourself to get to know them. I also have a series of 4 books set in medieval Chesterfield, just after the Black Death. Because I lived down near there for a few years, and I really loved the place. And I got the inspiration for the first book just driving through Chesterfield. The whole book came to me in 10 seconds. So that's pretty much where I am. Gives you a little bit of background about me. I was also a music journalist for many years. I still do very occasional reviews, but I was actually on NPR's All Things Considered for several years as a contributing record reviews, and that was from, 2000 to 2008, I do believe. So if my voice sounds vaguely familiar, that might be where from.
I guess, do you want to take some questions now if anyone had?
Happy to.
Okay, so, and also I'd mentioned, I think you just did a music review on Facebook. I haven't read it yet, but I feel like I just saw something.
You probably did. I write for a small site called Roots World, which is based in Rhode Island. So
All right.
yeah, I do just a little bit to keep my hand in for the fun of it.
Yeah, that's awesome. So we have some people on Facebook too, but I know my mom and Lucia are here. So do any of you have questions?
This is
Are you muted?
Betsy, and Nice to see you again. I often wonder with historical mysteries if there's something comforting about doing it in a past time because what's done is done. And sometimes writing about current times can be more disturbing. Or, is there a reason why you find history more interesting to write about?
Um, it's partly a chance to examine how people lived more than anything. I don't think there's anything comforting in it because, to be honest, past times are far more brutal than today. Life was short. In the 19th century, around Leeds, the estimate of lifespan for a working class male was 27 years, um, which is not exactly comforting in itself. Obviously, a lot of people, that's average, so an equal number of people went beyond that. But child mortality was high, infant mortality was high. All through the 19th century, a lot of women died in childbirth. Contagious diseases, they didn't have the medicine to really take care of them. So it was a very different time. And it was a different time for detection as well, because there wasn't all this CSI, there weren't forensics. So it depended a lot more on asking questions, using your brain. And that's what I find interesting about it. It pits one person against another. It's not pitting science against crime.
Yeah, that's something that I find interesting too about historical mysteries because I find science interesting, but I also like psychological things where, it really is how the characters
Mm-hmm.
interact with each other and how they're trying to, like the sort of locked room. It's always interesting to see, how they're trying to one up each other. And I can confirm I don't find your books particularly comforting.
That's
Uh,
good.
there seems to be a lot of wandering through really polluted, nasty areas with people struggling.
That's
If you don't
because
mind
that's
my
how it
saying that.
was. That's how it was. It's just trying to be a reflection of the times. One thing that's vital if you're going to write historical crimes that you do your research.
Yes.
Um, you have to know the period, you have to know the place. Um, and while people don't necessarily change that much, um, circumstances do. So there's a lot involved in that. And, the guy who's trying to find the criminal actually has to be sort of smarter than the average bear to win out and use his resources well because he's not going to have a whole lot of resources to work with other than his brain and his informants, which is why he's got to know the town and be on top of things. So that's the big difference for me. I actually wanted something where it was not science dependent because in part actually because the advances in science happen so quickly that whatever you write is going to be out of date in 5 years to some large degree. I mean, we're going back and using DNA, old DNA to solve crimes, which is great, all these court cases. And it's good that they save the evidence. But again, it's a sign of how much things have changed that they can use DNA to solve these. Um, And maybe the people who were hanged for crimes didn't do them. But that's always been the case. You know, it's people who end up in jail now often haven't perpetrated the crimes. So that sense of justice and injustice doesn't alter. And of course, the law and justice have always been two very different things. So in the Simon Westow series, I'm dealing with a period when there are over 200 capital crimes. You could be hung for stealing something worth just over 2 shillings, which was even then not a huge amount. Or you could be transported to Australia for 7 years or 14 years. The punishments were brutal because the crimes were brutal, or some of them were brutal anyway. I don't think the crimes against property were necessarily that brutal, but someone who was stealing to feed his family felt the force of the law as strongly as someone who was stealing for profit. So I don't know. Was that a very long-winded answer to your question?
Lucia, did you have any questions?
Yes, I think related to our book today.
Oh yeah, I was thinking the book today for the
It-
book club nicely actually ties in
It's quite fitting.
because
on the
it's around 1854 in London, and a lot of themes in your books I think turn up in it.
So in your research, do you use maps quite a bit to get a
Oh God,
feel
yeah.
of the land?
I use maps a lot. I have dozens of maps of Leeds. Old ordnance survey maps from different periods, a selection of maps dating back to 1722, which was the first proper map of Leeds. There was one in 1577, but it wasn't. It was just what that was created for one purpose. So yes, I have a very good selection of maps. If I name a street,
Mhm.
that street existed at that period.
Very good.
Has to be that way
Yes, it does.
because otherwise someone will pick you up on it. You know, it's
But also, with a map, you get the feeling of the density or the lack of density in an area. You can imagine the three-dimensional aspect better. And I thought in what I read of yours that you gave a really wonderful feel for the place. The rooms, the houses, the structures, yeah, all of that. And it made sense that you would use maps. So maybe now to the next question, what other sources do you use?
oh Lord, I have got an entire bookcase full of books on Leeds history. So that's those are my sources, plus going out and walking the streets myself.
Exactly, because oftentimes the terrain, the elevations don't alter significantly.
Yeah.
There's changes, of course, but then, the erosion of rock takes a while.
Yeah, in the very city centre of Leeds. The layout of the streets is exactly how it would have been. Well, it's very close to how it would have been 300 years ago. Richard Nottingham could walk those streets and they'd be familiar even if none of the buildings were. The Richard Nottingham series actually had maps at the beginning of each book.
Yeah, I just started one, and I appreciated that there was the map. I don't recall there being maps in the Tom Harper ones that I've
There
read.
aren't, and that's for a very specific reason. Back in the 1730s, Leeds was very compact. You could put it in a map. You go on 160 years, Leeds has grown so vast that it would be impossible to put a map in there. For a start, you wouldn't have room even for the street names. It would be self-defeating. Even with the Simon Westow books in 1826, to give you an example, the population was about 7,000 or 8,000 in the 1730s. In the 1820s, it was probably about 50,000. You know, that's a huge difference.
Yeah.
And everything's spread out more. Again, it becomes impossible just for a small map at the front of a book. And
Makes sense.
because the action takes place over a broader area, just having a map of one part of it isn't really going to serve.
That makes sense. So actually, one thing that I was going to ask, I didn't realize, which I'm surprised that somehow it hadn't come up, because we've talked a little bit about the Richard Nottingham books, but I didn't realize that he was the actual constable. It seems like sometimes when I've read mystery novels that are based on actual investigators, it turns out we don't really know a lot about their personal lives because they didn't really write about it. So I was wondering if you ran into that issue that you had to kind of invent that a little more.
I had to invent it a lot. His father was the constable before him. It was strictly an honorary thing. The night watch would have done any investigations, and those would have been few and far between. I just changed things around and made him sort of a proto-copper, more involved. He lived actually on, I think initially on Curget and then on Briggate. He was married. One of his daughters ended up marrying somebody in the minor aristocracy.
Or
But
did he actually have two daughters like he does in the books?
Gosh, you're taking me back now because I haven't
So
thought
yeah,
of the original.
I'm just reading the first book, so I know that was.
Yeah, I
know
he did. I know he did have at least one daughter, and actually he was first paid. Gosh, in the 1690s, I think he received the sum of £20, which was a huge amount then, for giving information. This is before he was involved in anything to do with law, giving information to the authorities that helped them catch a highwayman. Now, I don't know the story behind that. I wish I did, because it would be a wonderful story to tell.
Yes.
But in the 1620s, I think it was, maybe the 1630s, he ended up in court over something, taxes or property. I don't remember off the top of my head. But the line seemed to die out. I've tried to follow it. Yeah, he had a son, I know that. But what happened to him, I don't know. The problem is that all of this was before the era of death certificates and birth certificates. So it was only baptisms and burials that were noted in the parish records. And even a site like Ancestry has its limits. A lot of things missed parish records. So it's I wish I knew more about him, but I hope he had a good life. Let's put it like that.
Does his son appear in the books at one point?
No, because in the books he doesn't have a son.
Yeah, well, I just started the series, so I was guessing that he might have a son later.
No, he had the two daughters. And I hadn't been able to research him before I started the books. I just sort of took him as a figurehead. The other people are all invented. In the Simon Westow books, he knows a printer called George Moody, who used to be a newspaper man. And the real George Moody had been a newspaper man in Leeds. So things like that pop in. There are some real figures in the Tom Harper books.
Yeah.
There's Tom Maguire, who was a union organizer, who was a very real person.
Yeah, he's a very major character. I guess maybe not in all of the early novels, but certainly it seems like there are ones that he takes
He's
a
a
big
minor
part in.
character. He's a
Yeah,
minor character, yeah.
but I think he takes a pretty big part in the first book.
Yeah, he's important in that.
Yeah,
And he crops up in, I think it's the first 5.
yeah, I think because I just got to the 5th one. I haven't started it yet, but I know I read a little, or I guess I read a little bit of it, and I know he dies right at the beginning
Yeah.
of that book.
He does. There's also Atkinson Grimshaw, the painter, is more mentioned and crops up as a character. So that people do make appearances. And it helps keep things interesting, I believe. That little mix of the real and the fictional.
I guess the other one that I'm thinking of, why am I blanking on her name? And the third one, uh, Skid Like Silver, which is about sort of the early feminist movement.
Oh yeah.
I'm trying to remember
Oh,
what
good
her
God,
name is.
I
The
can't either.
female,
Yeah, she was
the
a
female suffragette.
suffragist. Big
Oh,
difference
okay.
between them. Big
Oh yeah,
difference between
that's
them.
true. I knew that. I just couldn't remember which was which. So I
Yeah.
used the wrong one. But yeah, suffragist.
Isabella? Oh God,
Oh, okay.
I can't remember her last name right now.
Yeah,
But she was an important figure in Leeds history. She was also the son of a Quaker solicitor, quite wealthy, lived out in the suburbs, but became very involved, helped organize a tailoresses union, went to various pacifist conferences, and stood up and represented and defended prostitutes. So she was quite a woman for her time. She was a suffragist rather than suffragette, which means she believed in talking, not violent action.
yeah. I
And
do remember
Annabelle,
the distinction. I just I got the two mixed up for some reason. I was
yeah,
thinking, yeah, but
and Annabelle, Tom's wife, is also a suffragist, but their daughter Mary is a suffragette. Younger
okay.
generation.
That will be interesting, I think. I just, as I said, I finished the 4th book, so I
Mm-hmm.
know in the 5th book it seems like Mary is getting older, and it seems like starting to do things apart from her parents a little more.
Yeah, of course.
One of the books I read was the Lottie Armstrong and
Oh yes.
women police constable role. Was that based on real people, real women?
No, but it was based on the roles that they had, which were very limited.
Yeah.
And I sort of revisited that a little bit in No Precious Truth, which is the most recent book.
Yeah,
Set in World War II.
very good, by the way. If anyone is, I'm excited for the sequel.
Well, the sequel's coming out next April. And in fact, I should be getting the edit for it this coming week. And the 8th and final Simon Westow book is coming out in October. So it's a couple of things to look forward to.
Yeah,
But
I remember sorry to interrupt, I'll let you.
Okay. I did a different little take for No Precious Truth because, well, Kathy Marston is a woman police sergeant. she seconded to the Special Investigation Branch, which was sort of military police. They existed. Did they have an office in Leeds? No. Would they have had a woman seconded to them? No. So that's fantasy. But again, I tried to make her life as realistic as possible. Growing up in this new estate, New Gipton estate, some friends of ours actually live pretty much just around the corner from where Kathy and her parents lived. So it's there's always a strong basis in reality in the characters, even if they're not based on real people.
Yeah, I've noticed that. I mean, I think I remember you saying that they wouldn't have had a woman police constable seconded to the Special
Yeah.
Investigations Branch, but I feel like you make the reason why she is in the book feel convincing. It doesn't feel so outlandish.
Well, even if it's not true, if you can make people believe it, then it becomes true. Yeah, to be honest, you see that a lot in politics too.
Oh, God, yes.
Yeah, unfortunately.
So, but we won't go there
No.
today. But it's an analogy, if you want. My father was a writer. He wrote television plays. And the one piece of advice he gave me that I really remembered is, if you give people a main character that they like, who's three-dimensional, they will follow that character anywhere.
Yes.
And I've tried to keep to that. I made a whole bunch with the Richard Nottingham books. I made a bunch of rules for myself, and stuck to them for that series. But something that I've largely kept to with everything is, I've mostly steered away from the sort of loner cop, because I do sort of have two books set in Leeds in the 1950s that feature a private detective, an inquiry agent as they were called here, who's male, single, although he has a relationship with a woman. But most people, they're married, they have families. Just trying to make my characters reflect life in that regard.
Yeah, I think one thing that I found kind of refreshing about your books is that you don't have the lone investigator who's, whose personal life is in a shambles and because I think those books can be good. I like the John Rebus books where, his personal life always seems to be a complete mess. But in some ways, there's something refreshing about a character whose, life isn't perfect and those struggles, but it doesn't feel like they alienate everyone and, they.
Yeah. It's been a cliche, it's a cliche going back to Raymond Chandler, who did it so very well. And I don't want to deal with cliches. Plus, if it's someone with a family life, it opens up more possibilities. They become more rounded when you have scenes with the family and scenes at home. For Tom Harper, his wife runs a public house called the Victoria down in Sheepscombe. So that becomes part of it too.
Right.
It becomes an important setting. And that too relates to my family, because my great-grandfather was the landlord there for 20 years. My dad used to be able to walk over there when he was a kid, go upstairs and play piano for as long as he wanted. So I guess most readers don't realize it has that connection to me. So it's just like a private little joke, if you like, but it helps bring it more alive.
Personality.
Yeah, and that neighborhood has all been demolished now, Sheepscot, but it fascinates me. I've actually written a monograph about Sheepscot and its history because it was so brief. It pretty much ran from the late 1860s to the 1970s. It's a light industrial estate now. There's just kind of a couple of streets with houses. And I find it all fascinating. I find the history of Leeds fascinating. So it gives me a chance to indulge myself in the history of Leeds too.
So what does sheep scar mean actually? Does that have something to do with sheep?
Car means boggy place.
Okay.
And that would generally be spelled C-A-R-R. Boggy place, sheep? I don't know.
Yeah, well, I was also asking because having started the Richard Nottingham books, it seems like wool was a big industry in
yeah,
Leeds,
yeah,
at
yeah.
least at that point.
Yeah.
Huge.
Yeah. That more in the 19th century. Going back to the early 18th century, wool was where some people made their money. And that was the weavers bringing in their cloth to the market, the merchants buying it and selling it on. And it went all over the world. You know, some ended up in Massachusetts, in fact.
Volatile.
Yeah. And in fact, the book I'm working on right now, which is set in the 1860s.
Oh, I was going to ask about that because I remember the blog post.
Yeah, that includes an American abolitionist from Boston who's living in York. So looking more at worldly connections, if you like. But that's by the by, because I haven't even gotten acceptance for that from the publisher yet.
That's a shame. I was going to ask if you had because the first chapter.
I'm still waiting.
Yeah.
I'm still waiting, and I hope so. So fingers crossed. I should hear in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah. So the first chapter is on your blog for anyone who,
Yeah.
or what might be the first chapter, I guess.
Yes, I think it was the first chapter. Yeah.
Okay, I wasn't sure if you decided
prologue.
to change that yet.
No, that was that's the prologue, really. But yeah, wool was important, and then during the 19th century, it changed to the production of things like suits and coats and uniforms, what have you, the manufacture of woolen goods, but also diversified much more into industry. Leather was big. It was quite a center for boots.
Military.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a big theme in the No Precious Truth.
Yeah.
The military connection.
Oh yeah. And made a lot of railway engines as well, and all sorts of engineering things. So it diversified a lot. And during the 19th century, Leeds became, for some, very prosperous. But inevitably, where you have prosperity for some, you have poverty for others. And that makes for friction, which makes for fiction.
Yeah, that's oops, I think I muted myself.
Is that, I mean, it seems like Leeds is a character in and of itself and
Yeah.
all different stages. And I'm struck how it's kind of in the center of the country, and it's very different from a lot of the other mysteries that we read from the UK, which are either, picturesque little villages or London. So what is it? I mean, is that what makes Leeds kind of good for you to write about?
Well, it seemed natural because it's where I'm from. I know it.
Yeah.
But also initially because nobody else had, and, nobody had set crime novels in Leeds. And certainly very few people had set crime novels in the 18th century.
I
Even
can
the,
only think of a few. There's
yeah,
there's one which I started, which I thought was good. I think mom, you said you read a few more, but it's with John Fielding. The first one is called Blind Justice.
okay,
And that's let's see, that must be, I think, set in the 1770s.
yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah, because he was the magistrate down in London, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was an interesting man
And
himself.
the brother of the novelist.
Uh,
So
I've read a few books that involve him.
yeah, but again, that's London, and I mean, with the Simon Westow, you're moving into the Industrial Revolution, which was changed landscape again, and I think part of sorry, God,
Did someone
I
else
just
say something?
I just said huge because it
Oh,
did, the landscape changed, railroads
yeah,
developed, shipping, all of that kind of thing within. Yeah,
oh yeah, yeah, it's it became sort of Blake's Dark Satanic Mills, um, and Leeds was full of smoke and
that's
soot
a big, I feel
and
like
dirt.
the smoke becomes a constant reference actually
Yeah, it does.
throughout the Tom Harper series. You know,
Yeah,
people always seem to be choking on all the smoke.
whole
yeah, yeah. Um, so the way Leeds evolved and changed, and I do try to make Leeds a character in the books and an evolving character because the nature of it changed. So I'm happy to explore that. Um, it's it fascinates me, rightly or wrongly. I don't know.
You got me interested.
Well,
Um,
that's good.
yeah, I'm trying to remember how I first found out about your books because partially I like mysteries. My mom also likes mysteries. And I particularly like mysteries that are set in the 19th century. So
Oh
I
well.
think there's a website called Stop You're Killing Me, which my mom told me about, which is just a great name for a website.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know how well maintained it is anymore because I think it's all volunteers, but they have it arranged very specifically in a way. So you can pick
No, okay.
different historical periods and you can search by author or character. And you
Mm,
can, they even have it arranged by regions, I discovered recently. So,
mm-hmm.
or countries and then regions. So I
Mm-hmm.
went into Britain and then they have Yorkshire. But for some reason, your books aren't listed in the Yorkshire section, even though your books are listed elsewhere on the website. So that
Huh.
makes me think that people aren't always maintaining it.
Well, yeah,
or they
that I
have a
don't know.
stereotypical view of what Yorkshire is about, and they
Yeah, the
more on the
countryside.
industrial
Um,
side. Yeah.
I I found that I've been particularly actually looking for mysteries that are set in different settings now because you know I like British mysteries, so I'll go for a London mystery, but also I've been sort of the mysteries I seem to be most interested in are the ones that are set somewhere that feels like it's new.
Mm-hmm.
So I think maybe that's what drew me to your books because I was thinking there were so many 19th century books in London, but there weren't many in Leeds or even Yorkshire, really.
Yeah, somebody I know who has written these under the name of Bella Ellis has 4 books that use the Bronte sisters as detectives.
I think, Mom, have you read those? I feel like you've mentioned them to me.
One, and that it's one of the problems with writing about real people, because I then went to look at, well, when did it happen? And I realized within a few years of it, almost all of the Brontes had died. And so it made it a little harder to read because
Yeah.
it felt like, ooh, this doesn't end well. But
Yeah, I found I've liked mysteries more that involve sort of real life settings, but I almost don't like it when it's real life people investigating the crimes, particularly if they wouldn't have done that in their lives. Um, so I feel like I'd almost prefer a book that had the Bronte sisters as characters, but maybe not necessarily the ones investigating the crime. Because that always strikes me, at least me, maybe not everyone, but as kind of gimmicky almost. Because
Yes.
that's become a thing in itself, I think.
Well, that's all pretty well. So it's
yeah.
so you know, I do need to get going quite soon.
Okay. Um, I
I
guess
So
the
so
other,
you
if
take the
Yes.
time with us.
Yes.
if you
the
have any
other,
last questions, this is a good time for them.
I guess maybe the other thing I was going to say was, do you know any other mystery novels in the 19th century that are set in Yorkshire? Because I've actually been looking, and I've sort of been trying to find out, did famous detectives who everyone knows about ever go to Yorkshire? And I haven't been able to find a Sherlock Holmes story set in Yorkshire. It seems
No,
like he
no,
never really gets that far from London, except when he goes,
no,
maybe to
Oh,
France or something.
no.
There was a
no.
sort of this stigma against Yorkshire that, proper people didn't go there or something.
Yeah, well, I think that's pretty true. I can't think of any.
Yeah, it seems like there are
Yeah.
some series where the character might go to Yorkshire, but it's not the whole series. I
Mm,
found one that I was I was trying to find mystery novels set in Yorkshire when I was traveling there.
hmm
Um, and there was one that is Elizabeth Jacobean, and it looks like the character is from Yorkshire. But it looks like he doesn't really get into Yorkshire until the third or fourth novel. So I
Oh,
decided
okay.
to put that off because I wanted to start with the first one. But let's see, who is MC Carter, I think is the author's name. The first one is called Bristol Flood or something. It's about the flood in Bristol that happened at the time. They
Don't
they they look
don't know.
interesting. They've got good reviews.
Not familiar, I have to say, so I can't help you there.
Well, I
Yeah,
have to
I
thank, Warren for introducing me to your writing because
Oh.
I have been exhausting George Simenon and I really needed to get my teeth into another author. So thank you very much.
Yeah, I did
Well,
tell Chris that I think his writing kind of reminds me of George Simenon, but then I had to quickly sort of course correct because at least I felt like I had to because unfortunately with George Simenon there is this undercurrent of anti-Semitism.
hmm
Um, and so I made the Simenon comparison, and then I felt the need to say, "Oh, but I don't think you're anti-Semitic," because it's
very definitely
very
not. No.
it's kind of overt in his books. It was a put off because I know he was criticized during the Nazi period for just not
hmm
addressing what was going on at all.
Well, safe to say I'm not anti-Semitic because
Yeah,
my, my my school was half Jewish and my son's Jewish, so I
yeah,
think
and anti-Semitism is a big theme in the second Tom Harper
yeah,
book.
it is. It is.
There's a murder of a Jewish man who it turns out is, I think, has been an advocate for the Jewish community, and partially that may be why he
hmm
was targeted because he upset anti-Semitic people.
Yeah,
You,
yeah.
Chris.
Thank you so much. This was really fun.
Yes.
Yeah,
Well, thank you for having me.
um,
It's been good.
this was great, and I had this on Facebook Live as well. It didn't look like anyone checked it out while we were here, but people will be
Yeah, well,
able to watch it later.
okay.
And I have the recording, and often people will watch the recordings on YouTube. I can go back and see if people have watched them.
Okay, that's great.
So if anyone who has looks at this now or looks at it later has any questions, I might be able to email Chris and ask him, and if that's all right.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Take a little look at Russell Banks. He wrote a novel about John Brown.
Oh
And
yeah, I've heard
as
of
an abolitionist, that
Yeah, yeah.
he essentially lost his shirt in the wool industry. So he
No,
Russell Banks just died.
a little tidbit.
Russell Banks just died. What was it, last year or 2 years ago?
I think it's two now.
Yeah, I did an
I'll-
exhibit. I did an exhibit when he died because he was a
I-
very big author back in the day.
I have
And so
to
I felt
excuse
kind of like I
myself
had to honor him.
there. But thank you again very
Thank you. We're gonna leave
Thank-
too, but thank you
Um,
so much.
Thank
you.
you.
This was
Take
great.
care.
I'm glad you made it, and I'm glad we got this event
Yeah.
arranged.
All right. Thank you, Warren. Take care.
Bye, you too.
Bye.